question. I hope everyone can actually hear me and see me. We've had a few technical difficulties. I think my Wi-Fi is all screwed up. But anyway, yeah, you know, I get that question a lot. People asking me about what's going to happen after the Fever Code. I can tell you that I have no plans anywhere in the near future to write another Maze Runner book.
Oops, I've suddenly lost James. I've suddenly lost James. Hi, I believe might be the only person on this feed right now. I think James is going to call back in if we dropped him. James Dashner joined this video call. Okay, he's back. James, we lost you, but you came back. You were saying the question was, will you be writing any more books in the Maze Runner world after the Fever Code?
Okay, sorry about that, guys. Usually I have really good Wi-Fi. I'm not sure what the problem is. Maybe we need to give Comcast a call. Anyway, I was saying that I really don't have any plans for any future Maze Runner books. I wanted to write this prequel, The Fever Code, for many, many years, ever since I sold Maze Runner to Krista. This was something that was in my mind because the Maze Runner series is so full of mystery and intrigue, and their memories have been taken, so you're always constantly wondering, you know, what in the world is going on here. And so I thought a prequel was just the perfect thing to plan for this. And I did write the kill order, but we went back farther in time than I thought we would. So the Fever Code is actually a book that's been in my mind a long time. And I'm very, very satisfied and proud of it, and I really think you guys will like it. And after that, I'm going to try some new things, going to branch out a little bit, and I think you'll like it that I'm going to take a little break from Maze Runner.
This is a great question, and it's a quick answer. Why are you the best author ever?
Why am I the best author ever? No, there's so many reasons. I don't know where to start.
I can answer.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, Krista, you answer. Why am I the best? I don't actually believe that, just for the record.
I believe it. Because you have these amazing ideas that no one else has, and because you create characters that are incredibly real and you feel like they are in your family.
Well, that is very nice of you, Krista. But I just wanted to be on record. I do not think I'm even in the top 1,000 best authors of all time. Stephen King, for me, is definitely #1 on that spot. But I try really hard. I love using my imagination. I love coming up with crazy ideas. I love creating characters, and I hope to do it my whole life. And I hope to keep getting better and better.
Okay, here's a new question. Did you ever, and I think it's interesting, did you ever have an alternate creature to the grievers in mind when creating the book? And if so, what was it like? Because you're actually kind of a monster creator. You've created a lot of monsters. But was there ever another maze monster?
Well, of course, anytime you write a book, and especially when you're creating something like a griever, you know, it's not like you just wake up and you instantly have every single detail perfectly in place. These things organically develop and come together. So the griever started with the process of, you know, I had this giant maze, and I knew that it was a very controlled experiment, and so I wanted something out in the corridors of the maze that was vicious and terrifying, and I wanted it to be my own creation. So I didn't want, you know, something ridiculous like trolls or goblins or vampires out in the maze. I wanted it to be something created by man but felt like it was alive. And I thought this half animal, half machine thing would be really cool. And then you just rely on your brainstorming to let it develop. And the grievers were born and made even cooler in the movies. So I'm really proud of that creation, and they can be very terrifying.
What made it super scary for me was how it was part like creature, animal, and part robot. Like man-made. So it was like, what kind of creepy things is the government creating that they could make a creature like that? Because it was like man-made, so that's why it was also scary, even more scary than like an elf or a troll or a vampire.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so a new question. Someone asked, what is your favorite brand of socks?
Wow, it's pretty rare that I get a question for the first time.
That's a good. Socks
I'm
are
pretty sure no one has ever asked me what is my favorite brand of socks.
socks are important, James.
Uh,
I learned in school was that if you're in battle, they should always stay dry. So,
Socks. Well, I gotta tell you, I'm not a very snooty fashion guy. I basically wear Nike socks or Puma socks
do you do a
or
dress sock ever?
whatever I find at Walmart or Target.
Do you ever do a dress sock? Like for a night
Yeah.
out down?
Well, this is embarrassing, but I have some black Nike socks that I usually wear if I wear a suit or something.
Nice.
So there you go.
How
Fashion
about
tips from
a
Dashner.
knee sock? Would you ever do a knee sock?
A knee sock?
Yeah,
I'm not cool enough to do a knee sock.
I know not many people are. I think you have to be
Yeah.
like a 12-year-old girl.
Yeah, I'm hopefully not in a lot of ways like a 12-year-old girl, so
No. Okay.
avoid the knee sock now.
Can you talk a little about the changing? Why, when gladers are stung by grievers, do they go through this, and why does part of their memories return during the process?
Yeah, the change, excuse me, the changing was obviously a very important part of that first book. I loved the concept of their memories being wiped, but having these incremental things creep back in. And I also loved the trickery of sometimes those memory returns were being controlled, manipulated by Wicked. So, for example, Ben, in that really sad scene when he remembers and all he can see is he's so blinded by the little glimpses he got into his past. He just thinks Thomas is totally evil, and he sees some things that Thomas did that he may have either misinterpreted, not fully understood, and he just goes crazy and wants to kill Thomas. And Albie, of course, has some dark memories return, and it kept coming back to have really cool, little important parts of the story, like when Thomas voluntarily decides to get stung. And, some people say it's kind of convenient that Thomas had some memories come back. And I think they really missed the point, because Thomas had already learned what the stakes were. He knew how bad it was if you get stung by a griever. So the fact that he did it voluntarily shows that it wasn't just some random piece of luck. He went through total hell to bring that back.
Which, interestingly, is something that I think is a big part of the new book. Not to give any spoilers away, but the whole way he gets into the maze in the new book. Not to give any spoilers away, but
yeah. I think the Fever Code, even though it's a prequel, and so you think you know everything that's going to happen, there are still lots and lots of surprises in there, and I think it'll be a fun read for you guys.
Okay, so someone here asks if the Fever, and I know we're talking a little bit about the Maze Runner and also about the first few chapters in the Fever Code that were put, that we released in the back of, they actually are available to read in the second book in the Mortality Doctrine series, which is called The Rule of Thoughts, in the paperback. And also, if you buy any of James's books online, in digital format, we put that in the back of all of those books. So someone here asks if the fever code picks up right at the end of the kill order with Dee Dee, and I think that's an interesting thing to talk about because it's not giving away secrets. The material's out there. The prologue and the first 2 chapters are in the world, so we can kind of talk them through. I think in a way it kind of is, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. It is definitely, this book is definitely considered a bridge between the Kill Order and the Maze Runner. In fact, I always call it's a sequel to the prequel, and that's what it is. The Kill Order
goes right into the Maze Runner too, so it's actual like just a circle, like an infinitely winding circle of brilliance.
You're making me laugh. Yeah, it's interesting that someone asked specifically about Dee Dee because you know, there is bonus material out there that very clearly tells us who Dee Dee is and what her relationship to this main series is. But this book, The Fever Code, will leave no doubt. And it starts when Thomas is very, very young. So, although it doesn't directly jump from the end of the Kill Order, it's taking place basically right after the events of that book. And it literally leads up to the very moment that the Maze Runner book begins. And like I was saying earlier, that makes some people think that, you know, this book won't be very surprising, but I promise that my whole team worked really hard to make sure that there are some definite surprises that end the book that will maybe make you look at the original trilogy in a different light that you never have before.
Yeah, it's surprising. Okay, so here's a good question. In the Fever Code, do we get to see how the characters like Newt and Albie and Minho were before the memory swipe?
Absolutely. Yep. I keep joking with people that this book, in some ways, we have resurrected certain characters that people love because it's a prequel, and so they haven't had a chance to meet their untimely demise yet. So, yeah, in the Fever Code, you will see all these people that most of you have fallen in love with. We'll see Newt, and we'll see Chuck, and we'll see Albie, and we'll see Teresa, and you know, some of them are major characters in the book, some of them are minor, but you will pretty much see everyone you know and love from the original trilogy in this book, The Fever Code, and they will have their full memories, and the whole thing with even the memories, well, I better quit talking, but
yeah,
there are some cool twists and turns along the way.
Okay, so which group B Glader is Newt's sister? Does she make it to paradise? I would say don't answer the second part because the first answer.
Well, wait.
If she does Thomas realize who she is? Does that revealed? Have we revealed that information? I don't even.
No, we have not.
Okay.
We have not revealed that, so we can't answer that question.
Sorry, that's a secret, but it's totally in the book. It's 100%, and you get to know her.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, so what was your inspiration for the Maze Runner series, and are any of the characters inspired by people in your life?
Can you say that one more time? Sorry.
Yes. What was the inspiration for the Maze Runner series, and are any of the characters inspired by people in your life?
Well, I'll answer the second one first. I don't know if I've ever had a character that is completely 100% based on somebody I know. I don't really know if people I know are exciting enough to be a character in a book. But I definitely take bits and pieces from everyone I've ever met, you know. They all enter this weird brain of mine, this idea factory in my head, and then they spurt out all mixed together. So I do think that certain parts of characters are always inspired by certain people. just not 100% one-to-one. And of course, what inspired the Maze Runner is something I get asked a lot. And so some of you may have heard this before, but I think it goes all the way back to when I saw The Shining, the movie, which is awesome if you haven't seen it. And there's a scene in there, it's a really nice, beautiful scene where a dad's chasing his kid through this giant garden maze trying to kill him with an axe in the snow, which heavily inspired me and pretty much ruined me, I think. I saw it way too young. But so mazes have always creeped me out, and there's just something cool about a maze. You know, it's so philosophical and metaphorical and creepy and mysterious. You know, you never know what's around the corner. You're trying to find your way out. You're lost. It's just something cool about mazes. And so I really wanted to write a book that had a gigantic, very mysterious maze in it. And then lots of other stuff fed into this, you know, Lord of the Flies, the TV show Lost, the book Ender's Game, lots of different things I think inspired it. But it's just all these different sources of pop culture and stuff that mixed together and made the story.
I remember when I first read the submission from Michael, your agent, and he had said it was like Ender's Game meets Lord of the Flies, but then we all thought it had that element of Lost in it also. And I've heard you talk about how Lord of the Flies, you know, we all have to read that book, at least our generation did in high school, and I know lots of kids still read it, but how you felt it was human nature wouldn't react that way. They would react in a more coming together, and I remember that being a very important point to you.
Yeah, when I read,
why I love the books.
Yeah, Lord of the Flies was just great book. You know, in high school, sometimes they make you read books that you want to kill yourself and stab your eyeballs out. But I just absolutely gobbled up Lord of the Flies. This dark story, all these boys crashed on an island. They start getting all mean and nasty and killing each other. It was right up my alley. And, you know, just philosophically, I've thought about that book over the years, that I think human nature would react in a different way in that scenario. And I tried to show that a little bit in The Maze Runner. They're still pretty brutal and vicious, and there's definitely that survival instinct. But there's also a lot of order and loyalty and friendship and bonding together and working together. And I just tried to reflect as best as I could how I think actual humans would react in such a horrible situation.
I think that's why there's such a universal love for the series, because it is like brotherhood and families and friends or families, finding a family in your friends, which is a big part of life. Finding your troop or your squad, as they say. Okay, so I am not a very versed. I don't have much knowledge of fan fiction in terms of like depth of reading. I don't really read fan fiction. I don't know if you do, James, but I know that I am fully aware of the Newt-Miss ship. And you have a fan or a participant who asks, did you ever think that would be something that would arise? I think like when you started writing the book, wasn't much fan fiction or shipping. But what do you think of it? What do you think of it? The Newt-Miss, or maybe explain it, or maybe I should explain it. I don't know.
No, I got it. Of all the insane, crazy, passionate things that my fans have bombarded me with, Newt-Miss has to be simultaneously the most awesome, but also crazy and hilarious, and it's just provided so many opportunities for fans to argue and get to know each other. But I think it didn't really develop until the second and third books came around, and then really exploded during the movies, just because people got to know the characters more and more. And yeah, there's a lot of people out there who think Newt and Thomas have this thing going on, and they're very insistent to try to make me clarify or put my stamp of approval on it, which I refuse to do completely, because that is the magic of reading and storytelling, is that we all take our own things from it. So often, and people may think this is a cop-out, but to the really passionate Newtmas fans, and I don't ever mean to make light of it or anything. I just tell them, hey, if you believe in it, then 100% absolutely positively it's true, because that's the contract I create with my readers. I write the book, and then they read it and they interpret it. And so it's like telling someone, if they think an apple is delicious, you can't say, no, you're wrong, an apple's not delicious. You are in charge of the book when you read it, and so if you think it's true, it is true. And if you like it, it is. It's just, that's the way it is. You're in charge. You're the receiver on this contract. So is that a good enough answer?
I like that answer. I also feel like, in my mind, I'll just tell you what I think. I think that they are in love in a brother. Like, they are deep family brotherhood. They would do they have obviously done anything for each other. But I also love both of the visual, like the actors in the movies, and I think they're both cute and would be cute as a couple. So.
Well, yeah, it was already a thing with the books, but then the movie just made it explode even by tenfold, because you have Dylan O'Brien and Thomas Brody Sangster. But there's no doubt that those two characters are just so important, and that's one of the central themes of the series, is friendship and loyalty, and nobody displays that better than those two guys. So, Merry Newtmas to all you Newtmas fans.
Yes, I love that. Okay, so a question that several people have asked is, how did you come up with the series of code words used to help escape the maze in The Maze Runner?
Good. I don't know if I've ever gotten that specific of a question on that, those words. Honestly, you do this a lot as an author. You go back and forth until something really just clicks and works out. So, for example, I have another series where there was a bunch of riddles in the books. And it's not like your mind just instantly creates a riddle. Sometimes you start creating the riddle, and then you think of the answer, and you work backwards to change the riddle. But then you might change the riddle forward and change your answer because it works better, and you keep going back and forth. And the whole thing with the code words was kind of like that. They had to be letters that could actually be spelled by a maze. And the maze in the book is all straight lines, It's not circular like the movie, which is fine. It looks cooler visually, probably. So it had to be block letters, because the maze was changing to form these letters. And I wanted them to be words that had a very subtle meaning when laced together. And I think different readers have interpreted those meanings differently, which I love. And so I don't ever want to squash what anyone thinks those words may mean. But they're purposefully kind of dark, kind of foreboding, kind of morbid, but they also have a hidden meaning in the sequence of them, and that's just one of those things that I love my readers to go nuts thinking about.
They were all, basically, just to sum it up, they don't have, you weren't like doing, there's not another level hidden in there.
There might be.
Okay. Maybe we're going to have to talk about that. Okay. Okay. A new question. Will there be movie versions of the Mortality Doctrine books?
Well, I can tell you, of all the people on planet Earth who would want that to happen, I would be first in line. And we are currently in the middle of working on contract and negotiations and all that kind of stuff. for that series.
Awesome.
And these people, yeah, these producers seem very interested and love the story. So fingers crossed. I really, really want that to happen. And you know, sometimes these things take a couple years, sometimes they take 10 years. You never know. And sometimes, of course, never, which is sad to think about. But hopefully that won't be the case with us. So just, I will let you know the second I learn something that can be shared.
Awesome. I would like to know, me personally, a second before that. Thank you.
Okay, I promise.
Okay, so I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it to you. Wait, I lost it here. I want to ask it the right way. Okay. Will there be anything in the Fever Code from Newt's point of view? And this is also material that is out in the world, so we can answer it.
Yes, Krista and I and my agent actually debated this, how much we felt comfortable straying from Thomas's point of view, because we want this book to very much link into the original trilogy, and that whole trilogy was told from Thomas's perspective. And so it'd be kind of weird if the whole book was in someone else's point of view, and for it to all end up as this nice functioning series that ties in really well together. We decided that it had to be from Thomas's point of view. But because this is a gift, absolutely, you know, an author's not able to do this too often because you have to stay true to what you feel about the story and all that kind of stuff. But we definitely wanted to throw a bone to all the crazy, passionate Newt fans. And so we did do the prologue, which is already out there for you to see, in the point of view of Newt, which was really fun to write and was worked on very hard to give you that little taste. And but then the rest of the book is from the perspective of Thomas.
Okay. I'm trying to interact with you and also look over here. I'm not doing other things on the side of my computer, so so you know.
Don't worry, America is slowly falling in love with you. All the world.
Very slowly, very slowly. Okay. Here is a good question. Wait, it keeps popping. Things keep popping up. Okay. Considering all the factors, do you lean towards the opinion that Wicked is good or Wicked is not good?
All right. That is, you know, when I'm really pressed to say what the absolute #1 central theme of the Maze Runner series is, it's definitely all contained in those 3 words. Wicked is good.
I agree.
And that was very purposeful. You know, I think all of us recognize that it would be a little bit ridiculous for a corporation or even a medical research entity to call themselves Wicked. So it's a little bit of a wink there to have this thing called Wicked, and they keep referring to themselves as being good. Wicked and good are 2 opposites. And I think the whole point of the series is that nothing is black or white. Nothing is just purely good or purely evil. And I hope that throughout the series, you at least have times where you think, wow, I can kind of understand where they're coming from. You know, it's that whole question of if you could kill 1 child to save 1 billion children, is that okay to do it?
So I've never seen Sophie's Choice or read the book, but I hear it's a choice like that.
Yeah, and there's that old story lottery. It's a question that's come up a lot, you know, and I feel like there's a lot of times where we hate people for the decisions they make, but there's got to be at least a part of us that understands why they did it, because they're literally trying to prevent the extinction of the human race, and as they get more and more desperate, they act more desperate and are willing to sacrifice more people to try to get the appropriate outcome. So Wicked is good is such a blanket, strange, oxymoronic statement, and that's the whole point. And so I don't know if I can say yes or no to that question.
I would say I think they think they're good.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
definitely. I think.
absolutely.
Okay, so here's a real quick one. Brenda, I have to say it like this. Brenda or Teresa?
Uh, Brenda or Teresa? I love both. I that's another one of those things. I mean, I do love them both. I created both those characters, and they're very special to me. Sometimes I love them, sometimes I hate them, sometimes they annoy me, but there's no way I could choose one or the other. Um, although, only one of them does survive, but that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with which one I liked more. Um, so, again, if you're the reader and you decide that you like one or the other more, then you're the boss, and that's the truth. But it's very important to me to say this. I absolutely positively never intended there to be any kind of cheesy love triangle or anything, and it never really does get to that. I don't feel like a love triangle has anything to do with that story, and it just, you know, just because there's a couple of main characters who are female, and they have these encounters and interactions with the main character Thomas, doesn't necessarily mean there's this gigantic angsty love triangle going on. So I feel like it's much more complicated than that, and that they're all on the verge of death, so they really don't have time to think, gee golly, which girl do I like more? It just kind of goes the way fate leads them all.
Okay. Here's a really good question, and I don't know if I got to tell you this, James, but I just went to Harry Potter World, and it was awesome in Orlando, and I would recommend going, and I would go with you if you ever want to go. Okay. The question here that I think is pretty cool is, can you please, please, please sort Thomas, Minho, and Newt into what house they would be at Hogwarts? That's a
Oh,
good
I
question.
hate when people
A
ask
challenging one.
me.
I feel like
I mean,
everyone
I love,
loves Gryffindors, right? Because that's what Harry is. But everything has its positives.
yeah, I mean, I love Harry Potter, obviously. I read all 7 books. I saw all 8 movies. But I don't feel like I'm an expert on what the houses are.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I know Slytherin. Everything
Yeah,
else.
Gryffindor and Slytherin are very obvious just because those are the ones that seem most prevalent, especially in the movies. I mean, the obvious, I don't know. What do you think, Krista? You just went to Harry Potter World. Can you answer this one for me?
Strangely, I agree with you. I think like I understand what Slytherin is, and Gryffindor. What I think like Gryffindor is supposed to be very smart and clever. Well, they say clever in the UK. Um, and then the other ones are kind of just like different colors. I don't know. I would. So I'm gonna probably say like they're all Gryffindors just because that's what Harry was. But I think
I could see.
they would be together, right? Don't you think?
Well, yeah. I mean, think how different the Harry Potter series would have been if Harry, Ron, and Hermione were not in the same classification, same house. So
Yeah.
hopefully, if it was some, I mean, this is kind of a ridiculous conversation, but if somehow Maze Runner and Harry Potter were mixed together, you would hope that they were all in the same house. And because I have my dark side, it'd be kind of fun to see them in Slytherin.
Yeah.
So let's just say Slytherin. Why not?
Okay.
They don't
Okay.
have to be all goody two-shoes like Harry and Hermione.
I know, right? Okay. Will we see girl gladers um, in the fever code?
Yes.
Okay. I have one for me, and it's like the only one, so I'm gonna answer it. It's one. Okay. Did James personally approach you with the story, or did he get involved through the publisher? Okay, so the way James and I were connected was his agent. What his agent sent me the manuscript as a submission, which is most how I get most of my projects. And James, you met your agent, I think, through a friend or through a circle, like a writers group, right?
Kind of, sort of. I was really good friends with an author named Sarah Zar, and she recommended me to Michael.
Which is why it's good to be in writers groups and friends with writers. And yeah, that's how mostly books get published, though you could be part of groups like the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators also, and that's a good way to meet agents and editors, or get involved in a writing group or through a college program. Okay, so do you have a favorite quote from the Maze Runner series, James?
Favorite quote. Man, I should have anticipated that question. You'd think after all these years I would have picked one, but let me think about that one, and I'll tweet it later.
Okay, that's good, because it's hard.
I have so many, like everything from "If you ain't scared, you ain't human," and the whole "Rose took my nose," I suppose.
Yeah.
And
someone in my office, we have some tweets coming, and someone in my office just queried that because they are new to Random House, and I said, "Is this a typo?" And I said, "No, everyone knows what we're talking about." And we'll talk. Okay. Can my moderator please resend me that last question? Sorry. And I'm going to ask another question while I do this, or while she resends it. Are the Maze Runner and the Mortality Doctrine series in the same universe?
Oh, I absolutely love that question. I love it. One of my favorite things about Stephen King is that it's just done more for kind of a cool inside knowledge type thing, but all his books are linked in weird ways, and especially through the Dark Tower series. So it was fun for me. Basically, I guess if you really got technical, the way the two worlds are connected is that this world that we're all currently in, where we had a Maze Runner series of books, and then we had a series of Maze Runner movies that are fictional, well, 50 years in the future, technology becomes extremely advanced, and virtual reality becomes indistinguishable from the real world. And Maze Runner has kind of held on as a story. I know that's very wishful thinking, and people still like Maze Runner. It's kind of a classic, and so there's been video games based on it. And so that's why there are a couple of references to Maze Runner in the Mortality Doctrine series, which to me is just a fun little link between the two.
Which, yes, I know exactly where they are, and I would like for that thing to be created that they are mentioned in. Okay.
Oh.
Are any of the characters based on qualities that you feel represent yourself?
Oh man, I would say it's more things I wish that I had, or wish that I was. Thomas is definitely the one most based on me because I'm in his head, and so I can't help but have my own self bleed into him. And so Thomas is me, but he absolutely is a much braver version of me. I would, scream and cry and run all the time and hide in the woods, and I would be a really terrible protagonist in any book. But the way he thinks and the way he talks sometimes and the way he reacts and the way he feels, he's definitely the one most based on me.
Um, and he's very loyal, which I think is the quality that describes you. And kind, and also sassy. You can be sassy too. Okay.
I've been known to be sassy.
Okay. I am going through my questions. I just had one and it went up my screen. Okay. Why do you think Gally had so much hatred for Thomas? Was it the manipulation of his mind? So I'm assuming like things that he had remembered when he went through the changing, or the fact that okay, so was it the manipulation of his mind, or the fact that he was in his memories?
Well, it's a little bit of everything. For one, I definitely feel that Gally was manipulated during the death scene at the end of the first book, The Maze Runner. And I think that his memories were, hand-selected to push him against Thomas. But, and I think there was some rivalry there. But the thing I love about Gally, both in the books, and I think they did, honestly, an even better job in the movies, is you really can't ever, you can kind of hate Gally, but you can't ever really think he's in the wrong. I mean, he thinks he's doing the right thing. He thinks that Thomas has come in and made everyone crazy, and suddenly they want to escape the maze and all this stuff, and they're breaking all the rules. And I kind of have a soft spot for Gally, even though he comes across as a jerk. I think he has many more layers than that. And his whole thing against Thomas, by the end of the series, I think they've patched up some things and understand each other a little more. And Gally, he's one of the few to see it through to the end.
Yeah, he is. I also think one of the things I love about your books is, especially this series, how it's a big commentary on how the world, everyone's kind of doing what they think is right in a way, and it's just a question of ethics, I guess. But a lot of things that are horrible that people do are because they think they're right, and it's interesting to understand when you start like looking at the world that way.
So Krista, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Because this is obviously for both of us. I think people would be really interested. I mean, you were the key integral figure in foreseeing that the Maze Runner could be successful, because you bought the rights to it way before Hunger Games came out. What was it like? What is that skill you have that you were able to read the Maze Runner and look past its many flaws and realize this could be something that could be very successful around the world?
I think it is like a lot of things. It's about an easy entry to a story, and when you can just walk right into a story and you kind of know where you are, even if it's in a different world, and that the world is interesting and compelling and you want to learn more about it. And I think the whole time I'm reading a book like yours, I'm thinking, oh my God, what's happening, what's happening, what's happening? And I just want to keep knowing and turning the pages. And that's something you do so well, and not only in The Maze Runner, but in all the books. And there's so many twists that you can't stop at the chapter endings, because you keep like ending right as you say. I know I've heard you say this before, you don't end when the door opens, you end before the door opens, and then the next chapter starts when the door opens. And that's like, I think, such a compelling way to form a story. But I also, the idea of family, like these kids who are just so lost and don't know where they are, and then what is going on, who are these people? So you have like so many different elements working in your favor with the stories that you create. And this one, especially when I read it at first, it was so different at the time too. There wasn't the dystopic world that is now every book or 50% of books, and there wasn't. I guess that I mean, there's action, but it wasn't in a different sort of alternate, like confusing situation that wasn't space necessarily. You know, it was like you either had sci-fi or you had fantasy or you had contemporary. And I loved that it was this in between setting that I don't know, is this on space? Is this in the past? Is this in the future? And ultimately it was so cool to see that it was like on our planet.
Well, yeah, I mean, I know that came across as me fishing for compliments, but really I was trying to show that you had this vision, and you know, you heavily predicted a way the market went in a big fashion. You know, with Hunger Games, Divergent, Maze Runner, all these things. So that shows how good you are at your job. I'm trying to compliment you here.
Thank you. I accept your compliment. But you were also writing this before people were just writing it because it was the cool thing to do. And there's so many great stories that have come out since then, set in this sort of thing. But but it is like it was like a maze. It was like a puzzle, you know. And I think that that's really a compelling way to tell a story, is almost in pieces. Okay. I saw a question on the side. Okay, so people are asking about Ava Page. Someone asks, one, okay, so it's a two-part question, and these are from two different people. So one, do we learn more about Ava Page in the new book? And two, if Ava Page were in Game of Thrones, what character would she be?
Oh, I love it. I just got a message that this is the last question, so
Oh.
I better make it.
Okay, okay. I think this is a good one because I think, like, I'm just going to prompt this. I think, like, this book is kind of shows how important that character is in the series, in Thomas's life, right? Like, she's a big part of his life.
Yeah, I think you know, I'm a huge Game of Thrones fan, and I loved how this season ended and everything. So it's anyone who's caught up on the show, don't worry, no spoilers. I won't say anything. But that was kind of the perfect question to end on because Ava Page is so central in the Fever Code. You know, she kind of just appears on the periphery in the books. She's a minor character in terms of appearance in the movies, but in the Fever Code, she is front and center almost the whole book, and you really get to know her. Mm-hmm. And I love the comparison to Game of Thrones because two of my favorite characters are Jaime Lannister and Cersei Lannister. And they're so different, and they both, especially from the first season, seem so evil. And so contrasting those two characters, I would say that Ava Page is much, much, much more like Jaime Lannister than Cersei. And anyone who watches the show, I think, will get that big time. And she has so many layers, and that's my favorite thing, is creating characters that are not just pure evil, pure good, you know, black or white. They're very layered, complex, extremely complicated people. And I think that's why Game of Thrones is so magnificent, because all their characters are like that. So, great question, great show, and I guess I'll just say that this has been really fun doing this reread of The Maze Runner, and we're going to keep it going with the Scorch Trials this next month. Krista and I will be doing another hangout in about a month to talk about Scorch Trials and whatever the heck you want. So it's been fun. I love you guys. You are awesome. Thanks for all your support. And Krista, I'll give you the last word.
Wait, I want to remind everyone that the book goes on sale. The new book goes on sale on September 27th, and it is really, I have to say, you answer so many questions, James, and give different perspectives on a lot of the motivation, a lot of the events that happen. You give a different perspective on why they might have happened, or why they did happen, and it does make you want to read the whole series again. So you guys all might end up reading the whole series again anyway, after you read the Fever Code. So You can pre-order it also, and there's going to be a little something special in the first printing of the physical book. And it's going to be a beautiful book. And yes, please join us again and start reading the Scorch Trials so we can talk about that next month. And happy 4th of July for Americans, and happy World Love for the world. Sorry,
Good one.
That's a new holiday.
That was
July 3rd.
That was the most of any Google chat ever. Okay, love you guys. Bye.
Bye.